The iconic Route 66, which travels from California to Illinois, is one of the most famous road trips in the entire world. My dad and I had been talking about driving it forever, so we decided to make that dream a reality in June of 2019. The route is constantly changing, and so I figured that this video series would be helpful for those that want to look back and see what the route looked like during this time period. Also note that I tried my best to get all the correct facts in here, but I may have missed a couple. Here's what we saw on Route 66 in California. To begin our journey, we headed out to the Santa Monica Pier, which has become the official end or start point, even though Route 66 actually ended a few blocks east. For us, it was the starting point of our journey as we were heading east and our end point was Chicago. We photographed the famous sign and then made our way down to the pier. It was a Saturday, so it was incredibly busy and we had to wait for our turn with the end of the trail sign. Starting our journey on Route 66, 2,400 miles from Santa Monica to Chicago. After taking our photo with the sign, we walked all the way out to the end of the pier where there's a tribute to Bob Waldmeyer, one of the famous artists from Route 66. If you're doing this drive, you'll find a lot more things about Bob Waldmeyer all along the 2,000 miles of Route 66, and he's definitely one of the most iconic characters on the journey. From there, it was back up the pier and across the oceanfront walk area of Santa Monica to our next stop. It's just a plaque, but it's dedicated to Will Rogers, and Route 66 is known as the Will Rogers Memorial Highway. Plus, it's closer to where the official endpoint of Route 66 would be. Just left Santa Monica, got some of that great Los Angeles traffic, continuing on to our next stop. This is my dad, by the way. While technically Route 66 does cut through the heart of Hollywood, we decided to avoid that as we wanted to make the most of our day, and you easily need a day or a day and a half to see Hollywood. If you want to explore this area though, there are a lot of great spots on Sunset Boulevard in downtown LA. There's the Griffith Observatory, Union Station. I have a bunch of videos on all these spots on my channel as well. Our first stop on this journey was Elysian Park and the overlook of downtown Los Angeles. This part of Route 66 is on the Arroyo Seco Highway, which is technically one of the first freeways in the West and was built in 1940. From there, we continued to Figueroa Street where we got off to see the Chicken Boy statue. The Chicken Boy statue was made in the 1960s and was based on the famous muffler men that you can see all along the drive. This one was different though because they put a chicken on the head and they turned the arms inward so it could hold the bucket. It was moved to this current location in 2007. Next up, we headed over to Galco's Old World Sodas. While technically not on Route 66, the original location of this store was built in Los Angeles in 1897. It was moved to this current location in 1955 and it has over 700 different sodas that you can purchase. It's a fun store with a lot of nostalgia, especially for the older crowd. After having some fun with our purchases at Galco's, we headed on towards Pasadena with a stop at the Rialto Theater. It's no longer a theater, it's actually a church now, but it's still pretty cool to see from the outside. A few blocks from there was our next stop at the Fair Oaks Pharmacy and Soda Fountain. With over 100 years in business, Fair Oaks Pharmacy is still one of those places where you can get an old-time phosphate soda. The interior looks like something out of the 1950s and it has a great vibe for a Route 66 journey. They have dozens of different flavors and my dad and I both looked over the menu for a while before deciding on what we wanted. Pop's got a Chipotle pineapple phosphate soda.
This is the coolest place. Chipotle pineapple. Yeah, it's got the pineapple and a little burn afterwards. It's actually very nice.
Chipotle?
Yeah.
This is the most popular flavor, cherry lime. We got to meet the owner and we could have stayed in this spot a lot longer because it was a lot of fun. But we headed on, saw another historic sign, and then made our way to Pasadena. Our first stop in Pasadena was the iconic Colorado Street Bridge. This is the famous Colorado Street Bridge. It's a little bit hard to get a good picture of it now because of all the fences that they have, but it's historic from 1913 on Route 66. I always love seeing this old bridge, and the best place to park for it is at the end of Grand Avenue. Just be sure to read the signs so you don't get a ticket. On the way out of town, you can see the old Howard Motor Company building, and across the street in front of the McDonald's, you can see a Bancroft marker, which was an early Pasadena milepost for Foothill Boulevard. Our next stop brought us to the town of Monrovia and the Aztec Hotel, which was built in 1924. This is the Aztec Hotel, which is one of the most famous buildings on this stretch of the drive. It's not open right now, but it's still cool to see from the outside. The hotel is currently undergoing renovations and is supposed to open sometime in the future. From there, we visited another old service station before going to one of my dad's favorite places for lunch, the Hat. While the Route 66 location is not the original one, it's still a historic place for lunch as this chain began selling their famous pastrami sandwiches in 1951. That's the pro tip from Pops is you gotta throw some hot peppers in there.
Hot peppers.
Falling apart.
Never disappointed.
Next up, it was on to some more health food at the Donut Man. This is what the Donut Man in Glendora is known for. Their famous peach donut. They only have it like a few weeks out of the year, mostly in July and August, but if you come and they have the peach donut, you have to get it. Fresh peaches and glaze. I don't know how you beat this, it's so freaking good. Of course, if you don't want peach donuts, there's also lots of other options as well. Next, we made it over to Upland and the Madonna of the Trail statue. There's 12 of these along the National Old Trails Road, which goes from California to Maryland, and they're dedicated to the spirit of the pioneer woman. There's only 2 in Route 66, and we'll see the other one when we're in Albuquerque. Continuing on, we made it to the outskirts of Rancho Cucamonga, where they have 2 historic restaurants, the Magic Lamp Inn and the Sycamore Inn right across the street. The Sycamore Inn in particular is historic as it's been here since the mid-1800s, but we passed them both by as we wanted to get to the Rancho Cucamonga service station before it closed. This is the Cucamonga service station. It's one of the best recreated gas stations in the state of California. The Cucamonga service station was built in 1915 and it's undergoing renovations to look like what it would have back then. It even has the old bell that cars would have driven over when they came up to get their gas. This was easily one of the highlights in California as the whole thing was really well done and the people who worked there were really excited to talk to you about Route 66. You should consider checking this spot out even if you're not doing the Route 66 drive. After entering into Rancho Cucamonga, you want to stop at this orange. This is the only one remaining on Route 66 in California, and it's what the farmers used to use to bring out their food and to get people to stop while they were driving the route. There's also a restaurant attached to the orange. We didn't stop to eat here, but it looks like a fun place if you need a bite to eat. From there, we headed on to San Bernardino and our hotel for the night. We made it to our first hotel on the road trip, the Wigwam Motel in San Bernardino. There are 2 Wigwam motels on the route, this one and then the one in Holbrook, Arizona, but this is the only one that we stayed at. So fancy. I don't think you're gonna fit on that rollaway.
I don't think so.
We're gonna rock, paper, scissors for it. Oh! This is what happens when you lose rock, paper, scissors. You get a bed that's at least a foot too short for you. After figuring out our bed arrangements, we took some time to explore the motel and talk with the owner, who was also really passionate about Route 66 as well. It was a great place to spend our first night on the route, and it reminded me a lot of the Cars movie. They have 20 of these teepees here, but if you're coming this summer, be sure to get a reservation in advance as they do sell out. It was just about dinner time, so we decided to head over to the Mitla Cafe, which has been on Route 66 since 1937 and serves some great Mexican food. The story goes that supposedly this place was the inspiration for the Taco Bell taco. I don't know if that's necessarily true, but we grabbed tacos to find out.
Taco Belly?
Much better than Taco Bell.
All right.
After finishing dinner, we said goodbye to our wives and then headed back to the hotel to end day 1 of our 14-day Route 66 journey. That's it for our first day on Route 66, watching the sun fade over the wigwams. Tomorrow, we're heading to Arizona. Morning day 2, we are leaving the Wigwam Motel and we're on our way to Arizona. It's about 215 miles from here. First stop in San Bernardino, the historic California Theater, which was built in 1928. Because of the amount of things we were trying to fit in, a lot of stuff wasn't open in the beginning or the end of the day. So we just saw both the California Theater and the McDonald's Museum from the outside. Next up is the site of the original McDonald's. It's not open right now, but it's a cool museum if you get a chance to check it out. I have a full video on this museum in the description if you're interested in learning more about it. Leaving San Bernardino, we made our way up through the Cajon Pass to the town of Victorville. This is the Summit Inn right behind me. It's at the top of the Cajon Pass. There used to be a restaurant here and they sold ostrich burgers, all sorts of crazy stuff. All that's left is a sign though after it burned in a fire. Heading on into the actual town of Victorville, we made it to the Victorville Route 66 Museum. This is the Route 66 Museum. It's not open on Mondays and Tuesdays, but here's a few pictures of the last time I was here. Since I've been exploring California for so long, I've been to pretty much all of these places, so it was nice to have some pictures and video from previous trips. As you exit Victorville on D Street, Route 66 leaves the freeway and spends the next 40 miles on an old alignment as you make your way to Barstow. This is definitely a section you don't want to miss. Emma Jean's is a great place for a burger if you're looking for lunch, but we're heading to Bottle Tree Ranch. As you leave Emma Jean's, you'll head under this awesome steel truss bridge, one of the many epic bridges you're going to see on your Route 66 journey. Before getting to Bottle Tree Ranch, stop at this old gas station which is about 6 miles south. I don't know much about this gas station, but I read online that it was built in 1935. Every time I visit it, it seems to get more and more run down. 6 miles later, you'll make it to one of the most iconic spots on the entire Route 66 drive. This is my favorite stop on the California portion of Route 66, Elmer's Bottle Tree Ranch. Unfortunately, Elmer passed away 2 weeks after we visited the ranch, and so I'm not sure what's in store for the future of this historic spot. It does appear that it's going to reopen, so hopefully it'll be there if you take this drive. What do you think?
This place is crazy unique. It's interesting how everything is topped with something that has almost like a different theme and such. It's really awesome.
I've gotten a chance to talk with Elmer a few times over the years, and he was always such a fantastic guy that was open to answering all of your questions and telling you more about his art. It's definitely one of my favorite roadside attractions to see in the entire state of California. Alright, we're leaving Bottle Tree Ranch and we're going to the museum in Barstow. Once you make it to Main Street in Barstow, you'll see lots of Route 66 related stuff. They have a few historic Route 66 motels and lots of murals all around the streets. There's even a map online with all the mural locations if you want to see them all. The main thing we were planning on doing in Barstow was to see the Route 66 Museum. We were planning to go to this museum, but it is closed for the holidays. I have visited this museum a few times over the years, and while it's relatively small, it's definitely worth a stop as it has some nice exhibits. Plus, it's situated in one of the old Harvey houses, and this one was built in 1911 and features a lot of old train cars that you can see outside as well. From the museum, we passed some more old hotels and some murals as we made our way out of Barstow and into the town of Daggett. We're in the town of Daggett. This is the Stone Hotel behind me. It was built in the 1800s and frequented by John Muir. Supposedly, the old liquor store is also a historic spot in Daggett. By this time, we were ready for lunch and our options had become pretty limited, so we decided to stop at the Baghdad Cafe. Built in the 50s, this restaurant became famous because of a German language film. When we were there was a lot of people coming in and taking photos, so it must be pretty popular in Europe. If you have the option though, it may be better to just stop for lunch in Barstow. So we were planning to go to Amboy, but unfortunately, the road to Amboy is closed as well. Here's some photos from last time I was there. The town of Amboy is located pretty much out by itself on Route 66. It's historic for two things. One is the old neon sign that supposedly is being rebuilt so that it will light back up again, and two, the Amboy crater, which is a volcanic crater right outside the small town that people can hike to. Continuing on from Amboy, or just getting off the freeway for us, you'll eventually see a sign for the town of Goths. This is our last stop in California, Goth's Schoolhouse. If you come here on a Saturday or Sunday, they're usually open. You can go in and check it out. It's a schoolhouse from the early 1900s. While it's really out of the way for the normal traveler, anyone on Route 66 should definitely try to stop by here when it's open. This schoolhouse in the middle of nowhere has been really well preserved with lots of interesting information in the interior part of the building. Also on the outside, there's a bunch of trails that lead to old cars and mining materials and all sorts of things for you to see. There's even some signs for the nearby Mitchell Caverns, which used to be on the road, and an old school bus that's cool to photograph. Almost finished our first state on Route 66.
It's been pretty epic. Little ups and downs with what's open and what's closed, but it's been pretty epic.
All that was left for us to see in California was a few stops in the town of Needles. The first stop is the old Harvey House and train station known as the El Garces. There's not much to see there, but it is a historic building on the route. Apart from that, there's the Needles wagon on the way out of town and the National Old Trails sign, as well as a few old motel signs. The last thing we wanted to see though was the Old Trails Bridge, which crosses the Colorado. We did a little research and figured out that you could get off the exit before you get into Arizona, go along the Colorado River and under the current bridge in order to get a good view of it. That is the highway, the current Route 66 highway right here. But this is what they used to drive across in the 40s, and it's way cooler. Left California, it looks like Arizona is actually excited for us to be here.
Look at that.
Turn right, Route 66. That's it for our Route 66 stops in California. Go over to my other account to continue the journey to Arizona and the rest of the states. I'll be posting a new video on that account weekly, and you can see links to all the videos if they've already been posted in the description.